All right, guys, welcome back to the stream. Welcome if you are new. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. And thank you, as always, for waiting patiently for the intro to finish up. I hope everybody is doing well on this Sunday. I got my coffee. Uh, as you can clearly see behind me, Leia has officially taken over Boss's spot, man. She claimed this cat tower. It's hers now. All she does is sleep on it. It's her favorite spot. Um, but I'm sure Boss will show up. But yeah, welcome back to the stream, guys. We have some really interesting topics to go over and talk about today. We're talking about Valve seemingly in the process of creating a home console that from what it sounds like, it's going to try to actually be a direct competitor to PlayStation, Xbox, and to a certain degree, even the Switch, I guess, if we want to count that. So we're going to go over that report and we're going to discuss the implications of this. What if it were to be true, and if it were to happen, what would change? What would our expectations be? Could Valve actually seriously take on PlayStation as well as Xbox in this space? We will talk all about that. We're also going to be talking a little bit more about the Game Awards. We're going to be talking about how an insider's like really hyping it up, which, it's kind of a joke at this point, but we'll still cover it. And we're going to talk a little bit about a rumor regarding the Switch reveal date and release date as well. And then we also have a report regarding Ubisoft's buyout. We have Michael Lynch with a $10 super chat. Michael, thank you so much, buddy. You're saying Nick is tripping talking about Xbox is dominating PlayStation. Xbox has moved the goalpost so far back, you would have to take a 24-hour plane ride to India to kick a field goal. Wow. Damn, Michael. Yeah, that was pretty savage. I'm trying to see what you're talking about here. You're saying Nick. Let me look back. Xbox is destroying PlayStation, and it's only going to get worse. PlayStation needs to allow free cloud saves. It's ridiculous we have to pay when everyone else doesn't. I agree with that second part. Sony should make that free. They should not paywall that behind PlayStation Plus. That's pretty trash. But no, Xbox is definitely not destroying PlayStation. I mean, Xbox is in a position like we've talked about where they have. I mean, we talk like what you're saying here. Xbox has moved the goalpost. I mean, when we talk about goalpost moving, I don't know. We're talking about it in the context of business. So in business, anything goes, right? Whatever a company needs to do to succeed, they'll do it. However, they need to reorient the goalpost and change it and move it. It doesn't matter. As long as the shareholders are on board, they'll do it. So as we've established, Microsoft, yeah, in the console space, they have really seemingly conceded, to PlayStation and Nintendo. In terms of the wider gaming landscape, in terms of video game publishing, Microsoft feels like they're on the up, and they are on the up. And so they paid to make that happen. We will see what happens, Michael. But yeah, I definitely don't agree with that. I do not agree that Xbox is dominating PlayStation. I don't think most people would agree with that assessment. I mean, I guess it depends on who you ask, but I don't really see that happening. But Michael, thank you so much for the super chat. We also have Surge343 with a $10 super chat. He says, only one stream behind now, finally caught up, 60% done Spider-Man 2 with half of the trophies. Nothing worse than saving most of the side trophies until after a campaign. Glad I'm doing it as I go. Yeah, man, I do remember my journey to platinuming Spider-Man 2. It was a pretty good ride overall. I mean, I didn't enjoy the side content as much, so I think I'm kind of with you there. I think I did save most of the side content for the end, and it did become a bit, less exciting, right? I think when you kind of do it in between completing the regular missions, I think that's a better way to go about it. But I'm glad to hear you're caught up with the streams now, man. I really appreciate that. I know that there are some people they try to keep up, and I do apologize. I know there's just so much content, so many streams, maybe too much at times. So to anybody who's actually trying to keep up, I mean, my tip of the hat to you, man. Really, that's it's impressive. So, Serge, thank you so much, man, and good luck. Good luck with the remaining 40%. Spider-Man 2, I think, is a pretty solid platinum. It's not too difficult. doesn't overstay its welcome. It took me, I believe, 27 hours, I think, to get the platinum. So not bad. Not a bad it wasn't again, it wasn't something that took like 60 or 70. So MVG, I'm a man of my word. If no event for PlayStation is being shown before the Game Awards, I will gift 50 on Thursday. Well, damn, MRPD. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. It's fun. I think I mentioned to you the other day. I was like, man, there's still no PlayStation event. Is MRPD? How's he? Was he serious? But if you do, man, that'd be awesome. That'd obviously be greatly appreciated. But we still have a couple days, right? It's not over till it's over. MRPD. It's not over till it's over. So listen, before we dive into these topics, I want to again thank you guys for being here. I want to give a shout out to anybody who catches the streams after the fact and can't catch them live. I do appreciate the viewership. Hit the like button for me. We're sitting at 44 likes. Let's push for 50 likes. Let's see if we can get that up to 75. It definitely helps with the YouTube algorithm. I also just want to let you know a couple of ways you can support the channel. Consider becoming a channel member, gain access to exclusive perks. Consider gifting memberships. Help out the community, help me out in the process. Consider dropping a super chat like Michael Lynch or Surge343 has done. And there is a direct donation link at the top of the stream as well. We are striving for a goal of 20 memberships, the teal or higher. I think that's $5 or higher. If we hit 20, we will feed the beast. 25 members gets us to feed the beast as well. So there are two ways to make that happen. But yeah, thank you to everybody who supports the content directly. Couldn't do it without you. So let's talk about this situation with Valve entering the console space in what sounds like it sounds like it's going to be in a relatively serious way. So the report comes from Insider Gaming. It says Valve appears to be developing a new standalone Steam console for players. According to recent rumors and findings from various Valve data miners, the Washington-based company is working on a new traditional system known as Fremont, along with the Steam Controller 2 and Deckard VR headset. In a series of posts on social media, Valve insider Brad Lynch posted what he considers to be signs of the new Steam OS hardware. First, he discussed why it wouldn't be a dock for current devices like the Steam Deck. Lynch said that the evidence suggests a full-size HDMI port being hardwired to the card directly, as opposed to being connected via USB-C. All references to Fremont ensure checks for a full-size HDMI Type-A port that you would see on TV-focused consoles and other desktop computers that do not have a dedicated GPU with its own HDMI ports. This is what Lynch said. In other data areas, it shows AMD Lilac board being used for development, while the final board is completed with firmware specifically developed for this new device being worked on as well. It's also shown that Quanta Computer, the manufacturer of the Steam Deck, is providing feedback on the system. Valve has not commented on any of the rumors, and as such, everything here should be taken with a grain of salt until it's confirmed. It's worth noting, however, that the company is approaching the 10-year anniversary of when it released its Steam controller and Steam machines. So this is where this information is coming from. It's coming from a Valve insider, Brad Lynch, who is coming out here and saying that there is a new piece of hardware, seemingly a console that is in development at Valve that, based off of what he's seeing, is going to be a more traditional console. Now, obviously, the first thing that people think of are the Steam machines. Who remembers the Steam machines? I do, kind of. The Steam machines came out, close to 10 years ago, and they were, to be honest, they were like a complete failure. What Valve decided to do is basically create the closest thing to a home console that they could, but it really struggled in a few areas. You're saying Brad's not an insider? What is he then? What would we call him? But the Steam machines, I mean, they suffered from a couple of problems. One of the biggest problems is there were too many. There were just way too many Steam machines. I think it confused the market. Customers couldn't really decide which one they should buy, and it was a bit overwhelming, or even very overwhelming. On top of that, from my understanding, the Steam library, only like 1/5 of the Steam library was actually available on the Steam Deck, which obviously is a major like, yeah, that's going to be a tough sell. Why not just get a gaming PC at that point? And if I recall, I'm pretty sure Valve made sure that there were like no exclusives. There were like no exclusives for the Steam Deck. And so, this was around the same time or not too long after the Xbox One and PS4 came out. And it just seemed like, you know, sales wise, I think from what I was looking up, I think it sold like about 500,000 units in total. So it really was not successful for Valve. And so, they learned a lot in doing that. And it seems like everything that they learned, everything that they kind of messed up with, they took that, they worked on it, and then we ended up getting the Steam Deck, right? The Steam Deck seems to be, I would say, Valve's intentions realized almost fully realized in the hardware space. And it kind of makes sense after the success of the Steam Deck that maybe Valve would consider maybe we should just try to make like a regular home console as well. And this is where the conversation gets very interesting because we have to ask ourselves like what impact would that have if Valve came out very seriously, $500, $600 console, very powerful, very capable, entire Steam library available. Now, how is that possible? Is it would it be possible for Valve to get the entire Steam library on a dedicated console without using Windows? This is where I'm a bit I don't my under my knowledge on this is a bit lacking. I think Xbox should be more worried than Sony. Well, I don't necessarily know that either Sony or well, yeah, I guess Microsoft would be a little bit worried, but I don't know that it's time to worry for anybody yet. But Rudy, you think if Valve does it right, they're about to smash PlayStation? Devil Shooter saying Half-Life 3 rumors slash leaks, Steam Machines return sounds about right to me. Well, I'll put it to you this way: if Valve ends up creating a $500 box that's just as powerful as like the PS5 or the PS5 Pro or whatever, I don't know if it would be as powerful as the Pro, but just something that's in the same ballpark, right? And they tell you like, look, we have like a streamlined OS, make navigation very simple, very easy, and you have access to the entire Steam library. If they were to do that, and then I don't know, I did see some people talking about Half-Life 3 exclusive, right? Yeah, that to me would be something that Sony would absolutely have to be like, "Oh shit." And I'm all for it, dude. I listen, in this instance, I am absolutely rooting for Valve. I hope this is real, and I hope like this upcoming Valve console or whatever. I hope the intention is Valve is like we want to take on the PS5. I absolutely hope that's what's happening. Obviously, there's very little we know. This is purely speculation, but that would be amazing because that would be. I'm not saying Valve would necessarily be successful in their endeavor, but if they played their cards right, if they did everything right, they could basically come and just like knock directly on Sony's door and be like, "Hey, we're fighting you now. Microsoft's out, we're in." That would be amazing because Valve would absolutely it like let's run like a hypothetical scenario, right? Let's say that Valve by the time like next gen rolls around or close to it, um let's say that they the leaks come out that there is like a premium like a not a premium but just like a $500 to $600 home console that Valve's going to be releasing. Half-Life 3 is going to be exclusive to it, which would be nuts. Like that's just like nuts to think about. They already had the Steam Deck, and I guess the only thing that would be questionable is the controller. I know a lot of people are not fans of the controller that Valve made, so they're working on a second version of that. Um, let's assume they make it a more traditional controller, something that actually like kind of competes directly against the Xbox controller and the PlayStation controller. They basically check off all the boxes, right? Entire Steam library. We got a major killer app exclusive, and we got a much better controller now and an affordable box. If they do that and they're like, this is their play where we are now entering the console space, holy shit, that would be awesome. I don't even give a shit about Steam, and that would be awesome. I would love to see Sony's reaction to that. I would love to see Steam come in or Valve come in and just be like, yeah, we're going to try to disrupt this. And I mean, you're saying so basically like copy and pasting others. I mean, yeah, but Valve is known to be very, I would say, consumer friendly. They're known to be very consumer friendly. Del- Cypherpunk says delusional. Half-Life 3 is exclusive to Steam anyway. I mean, listen, it is a bit delusional, but I'm just trying to entertain this notion of Valve. How could Valve seriously disrupt the console market? And this is, I mean, to me, this is the way to do it. I don't think it's impossible. I think it's unlikely, but I don't think it's impossible. But if they were to do this, man, I think Xbox is out of not. Yeah, I think Xbox would basically be out of the picture at that point. And in some way, shape, or form, it seems like Valve would end up taking the place of Microsoft in the console space. And I would love to see that, man, because people love Steam, people love Valve, and if they were to get it right, I think it would actually put some kind of pressure on Sony. Where it's like, yeah, Sony, Mike, you defeated Xbox. Xbox is out of the picture. You just want a competitor to Sony. I do. Yeah, that like honestly, that's why I hope that there is truth to this because right now it seems and I don't know that it's we don't know for sure yet, but it seems like the Nintendo Switch 2 really is not going to be a direct competitor to the PlayStation console. It seems like these two consoles are going to coexist just fine, and people are going to be willing to buy both. And so that's where Xbox will still play a role, where Xbox is still going to be involved in the console space. They're still making a next gen console, but I just feel like at this point, it's everybody already knows that it kind of doesn't matter, at least for now, unless they do something very different, where like maybe instead of doing, maybe Valve is going to partner with Microsoft, possibly. And there's going to be some kind of Xbox Valve console that has Steam on it already. And I don't know. I'm just spitballing a lot of things here. Funny thing is, Valve can advertise PS games on their console. Well, yeah. I mean, that's a whole nother topic, right? That we will talk about that. Like like what would Sony do with their games? Gavin, you're saying the rumors of next gen having Steam doesn't look likely now if they're doing their own console. Well, that's what's interesting because there were some rumors about that. And it makes me wonder if there could be another layer to this that we just don't know about yet, where maybe behind the scenes there is some kind of, I don't know, is it possible that Microsoft and Valve would make some kind of deal together, and work together? I mean, that would be powerful, right? Like if that team up happened, that would be crazy, I think, in the console space. Um, But I think considering how successful Valve has uh, been with the Steam Deck, I think that's maybe given them a renewed sense of confidence. You think it's more likely that Microsoft and Valve work together than be competitors? Yeah, I do think there's a real chance that that could happen. I do just wonder if the success of the Steam Deck basically has given Valve a renewed sense of confidence where they're like, listen, we tried with the Steam machines and we failed, but we learned a lot and we applied a lot of what we learned in the Steam Deck, and the Steam Deck did really well. People love it. Let's take all that and put it in a box that you plug in your living room. You know, it just sounds so fascinating to me, man. And Sony, I would, dude. I would just love to see that, man. I would. I would love to see. I want to see Sony scared again, dude. I do. I'm just at that point where I want to see Sony worried about, holy shit, somebody's coming after our market share, like aggressively, and they're succeeding. I want to see that because that right now that doesn't really exist. Maybe that will be the Switch 2, but we still know so little about the Switch 2 that there's it's anybody's guess. But I would love to see both. To be honest, what I would love to see is the Nintendo Switch 2 come out and suddenly there's more pressure on Sony because, hey, guess what, Sony? The Switch 2 is out, it's selling incredibly well, and it's getting really strong third-party support. Turns out some people are plugging their Switch 2s, they're docking them, and they're using it as their main console. I would love to see that happen. And then I would love at the same time to see Steam come out and be like, here's our new console. It's $500, 4K 60 FPS, right? Access to the entire Steam library. They may or may not have like new, here's Half-Life 3, Left 4 Dead 3, right? Portal 3. Subtext with a $5 super chat says, I do think some of, oh, hold on. Sorry about that subtext. My studio just crashed again because it just can't stop crashing. Subtext, you're saying, I do think some of our frustrations with PlayStation marketing would be fixed if they had competition. We would almost definitely have a roadmap. Yeah, like I said, I don't want to see Sony get like crushed, right? Because that's not, I mean, as somebody who's invested in the PlayStation ecosystem and I've spent all my time here and built my library here and whatnot, like I don't want to see them get crushed, but I want to see them faced with real competition again. I mean, like real raw competition that is reminiscent of what we saw back in the 360 PS3 days, and I would say even like I don't know. It's hard to say like the original Xbox days because Microsoft was just entering the market, but I think I don't know. This could be like the perfect storm potentially for Valve. It could be if they play their cards right. I don't know that. Well, all right. Here's the real question about this. Let's say Valve does release a traditional home console. I don't know what they would call it, the Steam box or whatever, I guess. I mean, literally taking the place of Xbox. Here's the Steam box. And it's a great proposition in terms of how much it costs versus what you're getting performance wise. Has a great new controller. And yeah, if they were to do that, who is the market? I mean, like, who's going to go out in droves and buy it? Because this is where I think things get a little bit more complicated. I have seen some people reacting to this by basically being like, man, if Valve does this, they're going to stomp Sony. And I'm like, well, there are a couple of things to consider. The biggest one is what somebody brought up a moment ago, where it's like, I feel like if this is something Valve was doing, the moment they announce it, Sony announces we're pulling our games from Steam and we're not supporting Steam anymore. I think that's the first thing that happens. And I think that is done for an obvious reason. We don't want PlayStation players to leave here to go there, right? But then you also have to consider the fact that most people, well, not most, like almost everybody who plays on Steam right now or who has a Steam account, a Steam library, like they already have gaming PCs, So I mean, I guess what I'm trying to ask here is how many Steam users who currently game on PC would also say, I think I want to get a console too. I think I want to get the Steam console. You think it would bring back true exclusivity? Okay, you're saying that's not how it works? What do you mean? Okay. In in reference to what? I mean, I'm speaking so quickly. When sometimes when I see the chat, I'm not really sure what somebody's referencing. You think Xbox? You think Xbox players would buy it? I could see that. PlayStation isn't going to revoke games off of Steam. So you think that if Valve announces a dedicated console, like a dedicated home console, and it's marketed in a way that it's like, yeah, this is going to go in your living room. You think Sony wouldn't pull their games? I think they would, dude, in a heartbeat. Unless there's something else, like unless there's some kind of reason they couldn't that I'm not aware of. But I'm pretty sure they would pull their games. You know, it'd be funny. It'd be funny if they didn't. Let's say this actually does happen. Valve's home console is actually selling well, and Sony's just like, that's fine. Meanwhile, like Xbox is literally the like it was. It turns out that Sony just really didn't want to put anything on Xbox, specifically Xbox. You're saying it would be so funny if Microsoft exits hardware at the same time Valve enters the market and laps Microsoft. That's what I'm saying, man. I want to see Valve enter the console space earnestly, because if they did and they succeeded, then it would completely destroy the narrative that I think has been kind of I mean, Microsoft has definitely been leaning into the narrative, but not just Microsoft. I think just more broadly speaking, that this is a shrinking market, or a market that, it doesn't make any sense for any new competitors to enter, and it's just a market that, you know, it's kind of dried up, right? But if Valve were to enter the console space and succeed, it would prove that, like, no, dude, like people still want to see stuff like this, right? Console market is dead, get over it. But I mean, it's not, though. I mean, you have to understand there's a difference between wanting it to be dead and it actually being dead. It's currently not dead. Now, if you were to say the console market has stagnated, you might be right about that. In fact, the data that we see right now seems to confirm that it has stagnated, which I understand, like, that could lead to death, but this is where I think the timing of this is very interesting. The timing of this rumor, and we've been hearing certain rumors about next generation with the PS6 and the next Xbox, and we have the Switch 2 right around the corner. Man, it would just be so cool. And again, I say this as somebody who I don't play on Steam, but it would be so cool to see Valve actually take a real swing at Sony and Nintendo and even Microsoft in the console space. It would be awesome. Saying it's not only stagnated in MBG, it's actually lost market share these past 2 years. I believe that. Yeah. I mean, dude, the consoles, the PS5 is still selling well. The Switch has done very well, but everybody's awaiting the Switch too. So I feel like there's like a new chapter, right? The next chapter of console gaming in the console market is about to, we're almost, the page is almost turned, right? And we're going to figure out what the next chapter holds. The competition MBG is dreamed of. I mean, yeah, dude, I would, and you know what? I wouldn't even be opposed if Valve were to do this, if they wanted to do exclusives. If Valve was like, listen, we're putting our console out there now, we need to give people a reason to buy it. And whatever, again, I know I keep throwing Half-Life 3 out there, which sounds insane, but any game, right? They release some new Valve game, and it's like, it's exclusive. I would actually be like, yeah, bro, like, I would love to see the results of that, given the landscape right now. Everybody's convinced exclusives are dead. Everybody's convinced exclusives don't matter. Everybody's convinced that, things are just one game. Well, see, that's where things get a little bit complicated, though, right? Because, like, the thing about Valve, and I see somebody mention this, Valve doesn't have the power of PlayStation's brand. It's not even just Valve is a lot smaller. Steam, right? Like that whole segment, while it is very popular and does very well, it's also a lot smaller. And so there's like pros and cons with that. I would say the pro to that is a lot more flexibility, right? Valve is, I believe, still independent, which is very interesting. And they can like Valve can just kind of do what they want. That's the like most interesting part about this is if Valve were to enter the console market, we have a potentially new console manufacturer that can literally just do whatever the fuck they want. They're not beholden. It's not like, I mean, don't get me wrong. They have to make smart business decisions. They can't just like run it into the ground. But there isn't this like insane pressure from the top that's driven by the shareholders and that whole cycle of like, we need to get bigger a lot faster and you need to chase the wider market. They can operate in a way that can basically just kind of, I guess you could say, slowly start poking holes into the competitors because the competitors are not like they could just start doing things that the competitors are not doing because they feel like they can't do because it's too risky for them and it's not going to lead to the type of growth that they want. And that would be so interestingly disruptive in this space that I would absolutely love to see it. But there's only so little that we know right now. And so the prospect of a Steam console, like a Steam box coming to market, taking the market by storm, and then suddenly being a viable competitor to PlayStation and Nintendo, we're a ways out from that. But I don't know, man. It's one of these things where it's like even just what little we know, the potential, the prospect of it is so fascinating to me. And I think I would definitely rather see that than I'd rather see a new competitor enter the console space than just continuing to see what we're seeing now, where it's like one competitor is slowly dropping out and now there's just two, right? I would like to see more competition. I think it would only be beneficial. Could you imagine Sony having an automatic 2-hour refund policy? They had to do it on Steam because Valve said they had to. Well, that's exactly what I'm saying, dude. Like Sony would Sony would never want to do a lot of that stuff that Valve does or that Steam does. And I think that's why I would welcome it because I do like the console space and I've heard nothing but amazing things about Steam. And so, I'm kind of in this place where it's like I don't want to move away from console. I do want to stay on console. I do want to stay in a console ecosystem. But man, if Valve just brought that shit over, like, oh yeah, no, don't worry about it. We're just gonna make a box and we're gonna offer all these things. Free online, you know? I mean, I know it's all stuff that currently exists in the PC space. But to them, just basically say, we're just gonna take this and we're just gonna put it on the console. That would be, dude. I would love to see Sony's reaction to that, dude. I really would. That would be something that would be so worth watching. I mean, there's a chance Sony could just be like, we don't care. We're doing what we want to do. But I feel like, I don't know, when you have a direct competitor that's offering like a product that's the exact same product you're offering, but like with all these things that are being listed that's like either cheaper or free, you know? Yeah, it would be very interesting. But what games do they have? Well, I don't know. I mean, I haven't been keeping up with Valve that much. I've been seeing that Half-Life 3 is apparently heavily rumored. Like it's apparently real. You have to understand that the newer generation doesn't care about consoles. I mean, yeah, not as much. I think the younger generation cares a little bit, just a little bit about consoles, but I think they're just not for most of the younger generation, I don't think it's their main way to access games. It's just kind of like an option that doesn't really stand out to them. Valve Cube. Herman will still be on the beach. Yeah. What if it's going to be a multi-platform console? I mean, yes, it could be that too. And honestly, given Valve's history, I think that's more likely. And I will admit that makes things a lot less interesting from a competitive standpoint. At least at first, it could still shake things up, but the idea of it being like a multi-platform console where it's just like we just kind of wanted to offer something for those who want it. I feel like that's kind of what Microsoft's going to do to a degree, or at least they're in the process of inching towards that. That would be it would still be interesting, but it wouldn't rock Sony's world, you know. It wouldn't. I don't think, to be honest, I feel like Sony would just be like, "Oh, well then who cares?" I don't know. I think my biggest thing is I want to hear more about this. Like I want to get more info on this. I want to see if it's going to be real or not, because I think the moment it actually is like, "Oh, wait, shit, this is real." And it's going to be announced next year. Like this is coming. Like the Valve console is coming. I really want to see what Sony does, because they have to do something. And even if they do nothing, that is doing something. And what I mean by that is, it, like, let's say the Valve console is real and it's coming in like 2026 or something. If Sony doesn't make any type of announcement that, you know, they're going to be pulling their games from Steam, that means they're going to keep their games on Steam, which will now, and it will now be available on a different console that is technically competing in the exact same space as the PlayStation console. So it's like Spider-Man 2, God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, and the list goes on. Ghost of Tsushima, all these games are now available on a console box that is not PlayStation. A box that is designed, when you purchase it, you plug it in underneath your entertainment center, you pick up your controller, and you play. Now, I guess that's kind of the question, right? Is like, because it's going to be Steam, is the plug and play aspect going to be there? That could complicate things. Sony has been preparing. Why do you think all of their games require you to sign up on PSN? Good point. Good point, Jack. I think you're right. I think you're right about that. What I'm describing is how the gaming industry will look over the next few years. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm kind of like going back and forth here, where one side is basically me talking about some kind of rejuvenation of the console space, you know? It gets some kind of boost. And I think it will, no matter what, at some point. But yeah, it's almost, I talk about it almost like this isn't the future we're headed for. I think no matter what, we are going to see that future. I don't necessarily know that it's going to be as quick and as soon as some people anticipate. I think it might linger. I think it might take a little bit longer to get there than maybe some people expect. And maybe I'm wrong about that. But I think that the future in the console space is essentially much more open. And I think it's just because, well, I mean, with the way things are going right now, there doesn't seem to be much benefit. I mean, I've seen people on like Twitter and stuff reacting to this rumor and this news. And what I've seen is like people thinking like this is going to be the return of true exclusivity. Like Valve's going to usher in the return of true exclusivity. I'm like, that's so weird. Because like I just, it's weird because that would be the last company that I would expect to do that. You know what I mean? It would just be such a weird scenario where it's like Xbox gave up on true exclusivity, Sony gave up on it. Nintendo's the only one that still does it, but they're also kind of doing it in their own lane, in their own space. And then like Valve comes and is like, yeah, we're gonna usher it back in the home console space, true exclusivity. Here's Half-Life 3. You can only get it on this box or PC. Well, I guess even then it's like that brings us to the conversation. If it's also available on PC because Steam's available on PC, then is that true exclusivity? That doesn't sound like true exclusivity to me. True exclusivity to me is what Nintendo does, where we have a single piece of hardware and here's a game that you can literally only access through that hardware and nowhere else. That's true exclusivity. So even if Valve, so that's I guess why when people bring up the idea of like Valve ushering in true exclusivity again, I don't think so. On the other hand, some people think that it'll force Sony to kind of go back to true exclusivity. If Valve does this, Sony is not going to want to keep putting their games on Steam. They're going to pull their games, and so it's going to go back to what it was. And yes, this is, I would say, what a certain amount of PlayStation fans absolutely want to see Sony do this. They want to see Sony go back to the way that they used to operate, which is our games are exclusive to our box and our hardware. Period. End of discussion. They don't go anywhere else. And people think that if Valve enters the console space, it's going to force Sony to go back to that. But I think what we might find is that Sony is different now. You know, yeah, I don't think Sony would. I mean, I think Sony would at least wait. You know, I don't think that they would announce it day one. I think here's what I think: if in a couple years a Steam console comes out, a Steam box, and it gets off to a really solid start, it's actually selling well, and people love it, and Sony simultaneously starts to notice a bit of a dip in their console sales, and it starts to seem like, holy shit, these guys may be actually, even though it's a small percentage right now, they're actually eating into our console market share. I could see a scenario like that maybe forcing Sony's hand. But I don't know that that's very likely. Sony wants PC, they won't give it easily or give it up easily. Sony, on the other hand, need to rely on Valve on PC and PC. I mean, okay, you're saying PlayStation would likely become a Steam console as just another avenue to sell their games to people who wouldn't buy a PS5 or are PC curious. Yeah, I guess it really boils down to how certain Sony feels that they've truly reached their endpoint or their ceiling of like, listen, all the people that we're gonna get into the PlayStation storefront ecosystem, we got, you know? Namaz, you're saying I got you, MBG. My super chat isn't working, but I got you. I'm sorry to hear that your super chat isn't working. Yeah, some people have definitely been complaining about that in the past couple months, it being a little bit glitched out. Check Zuitech, Santa Monica new job listing. Let me check real quick. Sony Santa Monica studio new job listing, associate producer, external development. Santa Monica Studio is seeking an associate producer for the development of a new unannounced title. An associate producer supports and manages scheduling and the day-to-day production of the internal development team. Responsibilities include collaborating with producers, senior producers, creative leads, directors, and studio managers to develop and maintain a specific discipline or project plan to determine resource, budget, or schedule needs. You have a passion for shaping an engaging player experience, a blend of creative and technical skills and experience. You have worked on AAA console titles. Help us create amazing world-leading games that will set the PS5 apart from the rest. Interesting. Not too revealing, but something. I do wonder when we're going to see Santa Monica's new game. Antonio Lopes, thank you for the super chat, buddy. You're saying Steam Deck has yet to outsell Dreamcast and Wii U after years on the market. It's a 4 to 5 million unit. It's at 4 to 5 million units at best, lol. They're not trying to take market share away from the big three. That ship has sailed. Yeah. I mean, when we refer to the data, when we look at the numbers, I think it does kind of sober me up a little bit, right? Where I kind of get into this like frenzied mindset of like we're going to see the return of the golden age of competition in the console space, but in reality it's like mm, nobody's saying that there can't be more options, that more can't be done, but it's not going to go down that way. Those days are over. And I think, yeah, I think I still am just until we see it like literally unfold in front of us, like in real time, like it's okay, here we are, like we've crossed that bridge. Until we see that, I still kind of feel like, you know, like again, I'm kind of like the Dumb and Dumber meme where it's like, so you're saying there's a chance. Oh God. I mean, yeah, Antonio, I will say from what I've noticed, man, and this is something I have to keep in mind. It seems like most, if not all, of Steam's player base, they are happy on PC, man. Like I think they've shown interest and enthusiasm for the Steam Deck, but more broadly speaking, I think like it's just like, yeah, no, PC is like the end game for us. And there's really nothing else that would pull us away from that, even if it came from Valve themselves. You know, Steam machines aren't going to do it. Steam Deck isn't really going to do it. It's because it's just, we're already here. We have the ultimate configuration. Novinzer with a super chat says, what's the difference from Stadia and the new console? Well, the biggest difference, Novinzer, is Stadia was pure cloud. Cloud only. Stadia was, listen, you cannot play games natively, only on the cloud. And I feel like it's kind of crazy looking back on it that Google actually thought that might work. Um, people, I mean, the market spoke very clearly. The market straight up said no. Just like no, that's it. Just no, and it was over. Nobody wanted it. Nobody was okay with the idea. Now, aside from the cloud, well, I mean, I guess I understand where you're coming from, Novinzer. You're basically saying that Google tried to enter the market. They tried to be disruptive, and they basically got laughed at. I will say, I think the biggest difference here is Valve has a lot more, a much better reputation, I would say, just broadly speaking. I think that does matter to a degree. I think that they have a lot of loyal customers that are directly involved in gaming. And I think that if Valve, if their approach to this new console, if it turns out to be real, if their approach to it is we aren't trying to be disruptive, we're not trying to take on the big three, we're just trying to offer an option, right? We just want to put something out there. I think that they could still succeed. And again, I think that's, if you look at the Steam Deck, and maybe the truth is I've just completely overthought this entire thing. Because when we look at the Steam Deck is exactly that. The Steam Deck didn't come out and say, we're going to disrupt the Nintendo Switch's success. We're taking on Nintendo in the handheld space. No. The Steam Deck is just, here's a pretty cool piece of hardware that, if it just sells a couple million, we're pretty happy with that, man. But we think it's pretty cool. And that's what it is. That's what it was. That's what it still is today. And I could kind of just see Valve taking that exact approach where they're like, yeah, we're really not trying to take anybody on. We're just, yeah, it's just a branch for our platform. I think that's actually the most likely. And I would still be excited to see that. I don't think I'd be as excited. Subtext, you're saying, or sorry, hold on, Kyle say stuff. You're saying Death Stranding 2 is kind of confirmed in my opinion because Kojima is there. You're talking about the Game Awards. Yeah, Kojima is confirmed to be at the Game Awards, and I am kind of expecting Death Stranding 2 to show up because, well, then again, we do need to keep in mind it could be the Xbox game. It could be the Xbox game, right? OD. Maybe it could be both. How funny would that be? Kojima shows up with both. Subtext, you're saying, even though the rumor wasn't about Sony, are you expecting more Sony at the Game Awards after the rumors of a very big show to get hyped for? Well, I'm a little bit torn on this one because I feel like, Sony had a state of play in September. Hold on, you're saying Jeff Grubb said lower your expectations for the upcoming Game Awards? I mean, did he say that as in like from like he was talking to his sources, or is he just saying that as a general rule of thumb, like keep your expectations low? But to answer your question, subtext, I think about the beginning of this year, and I think about how Sony had a couple of things at the Game Awards in December of 2023, but then they did a huge 40-minute state of play in January. So I don't know that I'm expecting that when we hear about the Game Awards being very big this year. I'm honestly not really thinking of Sony. Like I think if it were to be Sony, I think Naughty Dog. I feel like that's a possibility. Like that's a real possibility. Maybe not the most likely, but if Sony were to like show up with something big at the Game Awards, to me that's what I would expect. But yeah, I'm thinking of something like GTA 6. I'm thinking of something like The Witcher 4, something maybe even like Resident Evil 9, where yeah, all that stuff would be very exciting, very exciting. But I don't know, man. People at this point, I will say, I've seen a lot of cynicism towards the Game Awards, dude. A lot of cynicism this year towards the Game Awards, and I think it's just because like I don't know. I think people are just kind of getting tired. They're tired of always feeling like they're being asked to tune into these 2.5 hour shows and they walk away just mostly feeling like, well, that's 2.5 hours I'm not getting back. You know what I mean? Not to say that they're all bad, but I just think people want something like I'm just gonna put it out there, man. People want the hype. They do. I feel like everything for a long time it's always been lower your expectations, keep it low, don't expect anything, and it's just you hear that over and over and over and over again, and that becomes the new norm, and it becomes a reflection, I think, of how people are feeling about the gaming industry as a whole, which is, can we ever feel excited about things again, or is it just like everything actually does suck now? And I think that that's what this is kind of a reflection of, where it's like, there is no more E3. There is no more hype, seemingly, or there's very little hype anymore. Everything feels like it's been sterilized and turned into, it's just, it's by the books, it's paint by colors type situation, or paint by numbers, I mean, and people get, I just think, they become cynical because it's like, well, same shit, different day, right? And I think what people want is that they want something to make them feel a bit like rejuvenated. And I know I talk about this with PlayStation, but I think more broadly speaking, I think just people want some more excitement. They want to feel like these companies are actually like back to doing some really exciting things again. And when I say these companies, I'm talking about like most AAA video game publishers. Kyle Say Stuff, you're saying my friend spends so much money to build a PC, so I don't blame them for using PC only. They also like love Switch on their FPS and specs, while playing a game, which I'm not, which is which you're not a fan of when I'm on PC. And you also say here most people hate the Game Awards for its long ads, but they also need those even survive. But again, they hired expensive actors like Al Pacino to present, so I don't know. Yeah, I want to speak to the second thing you said here really quick, Kyle. The biggest thing that I've seen people expressing is that like they're yeah, like the teleprompter saying let's wrap it up, but people just feeling so jaded because of the fact that the Game Awards it lives off of ads, right? And those ads get very annoying and they just seem so ridiculous, like really this is the only way we can make this happen. But when you talk about the idea of like, yeah, let's bring Al Pacino up to give the award, it's like I understand like why they're trying to do that, why Jeff's doing that. Yeah, to me this is where the gaming industry just seemingly cannot it cannot stop itself from feeling like we need to be Hollywood too. We need to be we need to be Hollywood. It's like no you don't. You don't. Like it's okay for the games industry to just be its own thing. It's okay for the games industry to have its own quote unquote celebrities, right? And I just feel like, stuff like that, it does kind of muddy the waters a little bit. And you can understand why people become so cynical because it seems cynical, right? Where it's like, so let me get this straight. We have to sit there through all these ridiculous ads when half the ad money that you generated is going to one single individual, a famous actor that is clearly meant to just boost viewership and get more eyes on these awards. But in reality, it's like, I don't know, man. Like, if somebody says, wow, Al Pacino was at the Game Awards, bro, I now take gaming more seriously. Like, what? You know what I mean? It's just, I don't know. It feels, the Game Awards has felt weird for a long time. It's felt weird because it feels like it's trying to do too many things in one show. It's trying to be an award show that's taken seriously and is respected and is about the art and the craft. It's trying to be a show for the gamers that's going to get them excited for reveals and hype and make them feel like they're not just tuning in for 2.5 hours of just the industry, the people in the industry all high-fiving each other and celebrating themselves. But on top of that, it's driven by advertisers. So there's this weird advertising part of it that just feels like it's always interjecting itself. And it just completely takes you out of the zone of either respecting it as an award show or, you know, being there for the announcements themselves. And then on top of that, you have that layer of like, here are the celebrities and the famous people that are going to be here too. And it just starts to feel like this giant amalgamation of like, what even is this? You know what I mean? And I won't lie, like there's a part of me that kind of likes it sometimes. When it works, it works, but it doesn't usually work most of the time, right? Like when it works, it does kind of feel like this very, in a way, it does make it unique. Where it's like, yeah, you won't see any other award shows do all this. It's doing all these different things. And it's all kind of weird and like mashed together. And because of it that's kind of what makes it unique. But it also feels like because of that, it lacks a true identity. Where it's like it's the Game Awards, but it's like it's the Game Awards slash E3 slash random celebrity appearances that are going to make you cringe slash chic Hydrobot advertisements slash maybe something really weird will happen again at the end. Something really unexpected, like some random dude's going to show up on stage with Miyazaki. Nobody's going to know who he is and he's going to talk about Bill Clinton. Or maybe maybe there's gonna be some unhinged game developer that starts screaming about the Oscars and dropping 10 F bombs and making Jeff Keighley feel like he wants to like just run away, you know? The Game Awards are, I would say, the best worst thing ever. That's like kind of how I feel about it at this point. It's like the best worst thing ever. Where I have this just completely torn feeling going into it where it's like it's a love-hate thing. Okay, you're saying Microsoft could be the one to show something huge at the Game Awards, next gen console tease, Elder Scrolls 6 trailer, Kojima revealing one of the other famous directors working on OD. I mean, dude, yeah, this would be a good time. I would say this is a good time for both Microsoft and Sony. It's like Microsoft has so much stuff that they literally probably need to show some of this stuff at the showcase. A next gen tease would be so funny, but kind of awesome, just because it would be so. I feel like it's like way too soon, but it's just them being like, we're going to do it anyway. I would love to see that. We don't have anything better and bigger than the Game Awards. That is true. That is true. So, people seemingly don't really like Jeff Keighley very much, or at least he gets a lot of flack, but there's no denying that the way he does it, it is producing the results. You can't argue with the results if you're somebody who isn't, at all invested in this. The results are the show is growing year over year. And it's thriving. So it's one of those things where it's like, as much as I complain and as weird as I feel about it, as torn as I feel about it, it doesn't change the fact that there's a reason why it's continuing to operate the way it does, because it's working. Yes, we do. It's called YouTube. But I will say, we had somebody from VGC. Who was it? We had Andy Robinson. He says, expecting a very big Game Awards next week. Fire up the hype train. And then Robinson's claim was backed up by The Verge editor Tom Warren, who simply quotes the above post and says, same. Now, Tom Warren, he's known to be the Microsoft dude at The Verge. A lot of people consider him like a kind of, I'm not saying I do, but a lot of people do consider him like an Xbox fanboy or whatever. Get this off. So, like, I don't know. It could be anything, man. It could be anything at this point. I mean, they're being very vague about it. They don't even say why we should be hyped. Just saying it's going to be big. Kyle Say Stuff with the super chat says, it depends if celebrities know gaming. Some actors do. Some other actors have no idea about gaming and still bias towards it, can say very cringe stuff. Yeah, I actually agree with that, Kyle. It feels like, again, sometimes they do get it right where they bring on these celebrities that have been known to like the gaming industry or know about the gaming industry, and they are gamers, right? And I feel like when that happens, that's cool. And you can kind of tell, like, when it just kind of flows naturally, and it almost doesn't feel like they were paid to be there. You know what I mean? Like, it does kind of like feel like, oh wow, they are actually excited to be here and be part of this. That is cool. But it is, again, it's very much a coin flip, because I don't know, man. Like, I think the Game Awards last year, the beginning was so insane, where like first Al Pacino couldn't really read the teleprompter. He was like having a really hard time, and that was awkward to watch. But then Christopher Judge won. Was it last year or the year before that? No, I think it was last year, right? Yeah, and he's just like standing there for 10 minutes looking like he's going to pass out because, oh, okay, it was 2022. All right. My God, why can't I can't even remember last year for some reason. They're all just like a one big blur to me at this point. But yeah, I'll never forget like Christopher Judge like talking for 10 minutes and he was clearly like a little bit buzzed or slightly drunk. And like it was just the weirdest thing ever where like you could feel the pain. Like you could feel like I understand that people like kind of shit on Jeff Keighley for for having the please wrap it up sign. But I think they do forget that like they definitely needed that sign for the first 20 minutes of the Game Awards 2022, you know? But also at the same time though, that's kind of what makes it memorable. Come to think of it, the Game Awards 2022 is pretty nuts. Maybe they'll finally show Pragmata. I hope so. It's been a long time since we've heard about that game. Please wrap it up, guys. I don't care. Let Christopher Judge get his flowers. Yeah, I didn't really mind it. It's just, to me, it became really funny when you could definitely tell. You could definitely tell that, like, everybody was kind of like, oh, man, he's still going. Oh my God. Like, I know it's a little bit cruel, but, like, I'm just kind of laughing at just the level of rage and like how much Jeff Keighley was seething in that moment. Like you know he was, bro. Like you know he's like, oh my God. Like Jeff wanted to go up there and just be like, please stop and just go, bro. Like, Chris, we love you, man. Please. And it just makes me laugh inside a little bit because I'm like, man, every year I feel like Jeff has some like crazy shit happen that he's just like he's the meme of the dude smoking like 10 cigarettes, like this. That he gifted too many Steam Decks in 2022. Well, I do hope that this year is good, right? Like I'm rooting for it. I'm going to be tuning in. I'll be streaming it with you guys. I'm rooting for it. I want it to be big. How awesome would it be if when we walk away, it's like, bro, that was the best Game Awards we've ever seen. And we're all virtually high-fiving each other. That'd be amazing. Kyle Say Stuff with another super chat. Thank you so much for that, buddy. You're saying Timothy Chalamet, is that how you say his? I think that's how you say his last name. Can be a fun actor because he is so into gaming and he can't wait for GTA 6 2. Or Henry Cavill, where you can tell they like gaming. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I remember there was like that video that went viral of Henry Cavill where he was like building his own gaming PC. But he like 100% knew what he was doing and he like killed it. And it's just so funny. He's like, yeah, when he was playing in the Witcher series, he loved it. And I remember there were like rumors he actually left because they just started to like butcher it. And he's like, yeah, I'm out. That's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I do wonder if either of them will be at the awards this year. And Josh Z with a $10 super chat. Thank you, Josh. He says the Game Awards are like going to a kid's birthday party. You don't really want to go, but you get there and it's somehow entertaining, but you still wish you stayed home and did anything else. Yeah, I know that exact feeling you're talking about, Josh, and I think that's a very interesting way to describe it. I would say it varies from year to year. Some years it feels like, you know what, actually that was pretty good. I think I would have preferred to be there rather than being home. But a lot of times it is very much like, okay, yeah. But then you're like, yeah, that I don't know, man. And Titus comes in. Titus drops 5 membership gifts for you guys. Titus, bro, thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good stuff, man. Let me add that to the counter. So yeah, I will say we are with Josh's super chat here. We are at the halfway point for the super chats, and Titus drops 5 members to contribute to the goal. So Keep that in mind as we go forward. We'll see if we can hit one of these goals and feed. My God, dude, Leia is just knocked out anymore on this cat tower. We'll feed her too. We'll feed. She's a beast, right? Is she? I don't know. What do we say when we're feeding Leia treats? I feel like it's not feed the beast. It's like feed the. Bro, do you see her? She look at her. She's covering her eyes. Look. I don't know if you could see it. She put her paw over her eyes, dude. She's just totally knocked out. Feed the lion. Just feed the cat. Yeah. Just keep it simple. Feed the cat. Jack, you're saying you always lose interest towards the middle of Jeff's show. Well, I will say this. I'm not allowing myself to get overly excited for the Game Awards, but I am keeping in mind that it is the 10th anniversary. And so because of that, I do imagine that there's some sense of like, I don't know, there has to be just a little bit more this year, just a little bit, you know? Where's Boss? He's actually right here. Saying you just watched the highlights last year. I feel like it's going to be 90% trash, 10% bangers. Interestingly, Jeff hasn't done any Q&A streams. Hopefully it means he's busy cooking. Actually, yeah, now that you mention it, you're right, Subtext. That's something he's done like every year, except this year. Boss attacked the mic arm. I'm trying to prevent him from doing that. I did see somebody say earlier that they like coming to my streams when I do it. It makes it fun. I mean, yeah, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I would definitely struggle to watch the entirety of the Game Awards if it was, considering how long they go on for sometimes, if it wasn't for you guys hanging out with me. And I do think it does make it fun. I do really, I got to admit, like, the Game Awards have become so much funner ever since I started streaming them live. So I am looking forward to that aspect of it for sure. For sure. It's more of a community thing. Yeah. Yeah. Do you guys remember? Do you guys remember in 2020 when when I was streaming the Game Awards that year and I had that banner behind me? It was the God of War banner, and at the very end of it, Leia. So the banner was behind me and it was held by a rod, very thin rod. And Leia, for some reason, I like still can't fathom why she would try to do this. She tried to jump onto that rod. Like I don't know why. Like it goes against all instinct, and she did, and she knocked the whole thing down. And I was streaming in my basement at that time, and the back of my basement was exposed, and it was like a disaster. It was so funny. Does anybody remember that? Surely somebody does. But good times, man. Good times. You're supposed to play Steam Deck with the Game Awards in the background. No, Irfin, this is not the same room. No, back then I was actually streaming from the basement. Funny enough. I appreciate that, Carl. I appreciate that. Well, yeah, we have some journalists, you know. They're hyping up the Game Awards and they're saying it's going to be big. Uh we will see, man. You're not expecting anything crazy from Sony at the Game Awards? Hugh Jackman presents Wolverine. Oh, that'd be pretty cool. That would be dangerous though, because if he's not in it, Could backfire, you know? I don't know that I'm not expecting anything crazy from Sony either. I'm expecting a couple of smaller reveals and then maybe like Wolverine, maybe a cameo in the game. That'd be so funny if they could pull that off. Death Stranding 2. I could see Death Stranding 2 showing up. I think, yeah, the idea of Wolverine, Death Stranding 2, either of these games, maybe even Ghost of Yotei, I could see it happening. You remember I did a Death Stranding Platinum stream a long time ago? I remember that too. That was back in 2019, dude. That was a long time ago. It feels like a long time ago anyway. Days Gone remaster, Death Stranding 2, and Astrobot DLC. That's all. Man, I really hope Sony. Look, I'm gonna be honest. If they want to release a Days Gone remaster, whatever, I'll play it. I like Days Gone. But if they don't just make it a blog post, bro, like if there's a Days Gone trailer for a remaster at the Game Awards, it's gonna be so painful to watch because it's like, bro, Sony, what the fuck are you doing, man? If they're not planning on making a sequel, why bother? I mean, that's what I'm saying, dude. I would hope that they are. If they're planning on doing that. Days Gone wasn't even in Sony's 30th anniversary video. I mean, that to me is what would be frustrating about a Days Gone remaster. If it's like we're literally just trying to make money off of it, but we have no plans to do anything with it in the future. But then again, dude, like Days Gone, it is getting a movie. Yeah, they have a movie. Apparently there's a remaster coming, and I'm like, dude, they're giving they're giving Days Gone the same treatment that they're giving Until Dawn. And Until Dawn is getting a sequel, dude. It's been leaked like a few times. Fire Sprite is working on Until Dawn 2, and it's going to be a follow up. And it seems like, well, I don't want to say anything about it because I don't want to spoil anything for anybody who hasn't played it. But, if they're going to do the same thing with Days Gone, surely they're doing it with the idea that, like, we're going to do more with this property, right? You think Blue Point's game is going to be shown off? That'd be awesome. Yeah, I would love if Blue Point showed up. We haven't heard from them in a long time. Apparently, they're making a new IP. What if Ben scrapped their new IP mid development and started up Days Gone 2 after the director left? Oh my God. The director would be so mad, understandably. Masochist Mode drops a $25 direct donation. Masochist Mode, thank you so much for that, man. And he says, oh man. Oh, I don't even, I am Gnot a Gnelf. I'm Gnot a Gnoblin. I'm a gnome. And you've been gnomed. Bro, what? What? Masochist Mode, what did I just read, bro? Why do I feel like he's recording me saying that and it's gonna show up somewhere? What did I just read? You've been gnomed. He's spitting facts. Yeah, can't argue with that, bro. Thank you, Masochist Mode. I appreciate you dropping a direct donation and definitely contributing to the conversation in a very meaningful way. But you know what? No, there was no violence. At least it wasn't violent. I don't think it was violent. I don't know. I didn't sense any violence, you know? I didn't sense any ill will. I mean, the idea of getting gnomed, I don't know what that means, but either way, bro, thank you for the direct donation. I do appreciate it. MBG, have you seen the Avowed controversy? No. What's the controversy with Avowed? I keep forgetting about that game, dude. Like I keep forgetting that Avowed's coming out. Was it February of 2025? That could probably show up at the Game Awards. The art director's crazy woke. Uh-oh. Gavin, you're saying somehow Indiana Jones is meant to be great, spring release. Yeah, apparently Indiana Jones got really good reviews. I think it's what, like an 87 on Metacritic? So, Rudy, you're saying Indiana Jones is the best game this gen? The entire generation, bro? Is that good? Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big fan. Like, I'm not really into Indiana Jones, but after seeing the review scores, I will admit it definitely is like, oh, okay, all right, you got my attention. I'll see where I'm at when it comes out in spring for PS5. I'll see where I'm at, but that's good. That's good, man. Masochist mode, you're saying when's the next members lounge? I'm actually not sure, man. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's been a struggle to be able to do any members content recently for a multitude of reasons. But one of the things is, and I'm sure you guys have noticed, like we're having this kind of problem. I guess if you want to call it a problem, it's hard to say. Where the last members lounge I did, like hardly anybody was there. And the reason for it was because all of the membership gifts that are going out are going to new people. And I guess most people who were getting membership gifts did not re up their memberships. So when I've been doing this members content, the viewership has been so like it's been a huge U-turn in terms of the viewership. And I'm not saying that the viewership itself is what matters because it's members content, but it's one of these things where it almost is being conveyed to me that I don't know that people are interested in it anymore. Like that's the problem. I don't know that people are interested in it, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to do any members content. Obviously, there will always be some form of members content. But when it comes to the next members lounge, I'll say for now, be on the lookout this week. I want to say we might do another one this week, but yeah, that's kind of what makes it tough. JMR, see, I know you're definitely not the only one. Like I know there are people who like the content and they would watch it if they had access to it, but they can't afford a membership, or they were genuinely relying on those membership gifts. And a lot of the new people that have gotten membership gifts, seemingly, some of them have showed up to some of these member streams, but you could tell, like, I don't know what changed on YouTube, but most of the membership gifts seemingly are going to new subscribers. And there's just not seemingly much interest. I'm assuming most of these new subscribers are subscribing for the video content that I've been making recently. And most of them don't show up to the streams. So you think you and Wes are blacklisted? So I'm not saying there won't be more members lounges. I'm not saying there won't be members content. I'm just saying that I've had to reevaluate the cadence of that members content because we do have a certain amount of people that do re-up their memberships every month, but there's been a massive like U-turn, like I said, when it comes to who can view that members content and who has access to it. And so it's caused me to have to kind of reevaluate my approach to it. But I would say just be on the lookout for now. Make sure you have your notifications turned on. After 12 months, you no longer receive member gifts. It's yeah, that seems to be the way it goes. That seems to be the way it goes, which is something that I don't know if it was always like that or if that's something that YouTube just integrated. But um, I think it might have been something that YouTube just recently integrated because I've seen people saying you can unsub and then resub to be eligible. Interesting. Yeah. YouTube makes these back end changes, man, and they don't, as far as I'm aware, like they're not being communicated. At least not, I don't know. I'm not seeing anything. Like I haven't heard anything about this, but I've seen it. Like I've definitely seen like there is a major change that has occurred on seemingly on YouTube's back end that is definitely having a real impact on my channel, but it was like never communicated. So you're saying they made it boring. That's what they did. Well, we'll just keep, we'll keep it going as best we can here. Obviously, I mean, the whole thing is the biggest thing is I've tried to make it clear that when I encourage anybody to gift memberships, um, the number one reason you should want to do it is to support the channel. You know what I mean? And I've tried to make that clear with all of the fan funding that essentially any bonus perks that may be associated with it, be excited for that, of course, care about that, but make sure like the number one reason you're doing it is to support the channel because at the end of the day, like that's really what it comes down to. Like that's what is the I've only really ever wanted that to be the main motivator because I feel like it's just the most genuine and the simplest way, to kind of just keep the expectations where they should be, I guess if that makes sense. Saying yeah, most channels you don't get extra content for being a member. Well, the way I see it too, something else I've noticed talking about the members lounges, we did the members lounges a lot all throughout 2023 and for the first half of this year. So it was like a year and a half, dude, or maybe like a year and 3 months, give or take, of just doing so many members lounges. And what I've kind of realized is, man, if you go back, like if somebody were to become a channel member, they have access to what are essentially like member exclusive streams slash podcasts. And there's probably like well over 50 or 60 or more of them. And I kind of realized like, dude, the topics we talk about, it's just the only thing I kind of regret is not labeling those streams more clearly to make it known like what we're talking about, what the topics were. But there's definitely, I would say, some value there, for sure. Like anybody who becomes a member or gets a member gift, even if it's like a new person and they didn't see this previous content, I think a lot of it, or at least a good chunk of it, is relatively evergreen, where the conversations are still, I think, interesting to kind of tune into. Saying some of your absolute best, most real work was there. Well, that's what I mean. I feel like there's definitely a very specific, unique flavor of content that exists in all those members lounges that anybody who again receives a membership for the first time or becomes a member for the first time, they have access to that. But again, I'm not trying to make it sound like it's like retired. If it gets to that point, I will let you know. If it gets to that point where it's like, guys, like, you know, for one reason or another, I can't continue to do this, I will let you know. We're not at that point, but yeah, we'll still try to do a little bit here and there for members because I miss the existential discussions. Yeah, that's why I had to slow it down, dude. It's just too much, too much. You show up for the conversations, but the emojis help. Doesn't matter. But I notice I talk more because of the emojis. Well, there you go, man. Yeah, true. That is another benefit, Kyle Say Stuff, thank you for the super chat, buddy. You're saying Indiana Jones is being praised in Asia because it depicts the war in China against the Japanese, which the West always overshadowed during World War II. So most Asian countries appreciate them for being accurate. Oh, I had no idea. That's really interesting. I gotta say, Kyle say stuff. That is not one of the reasons I would have suspected Indiana Jones as being praised in Asia. But that's cool, man. Yeah, I haven't been going out of my way to watch any um I haven't been going out of my way to watch any like gameplay of Indiana Jones, but I've been kind of seeing certain clips randomly coming across my feed and I watch it that way and I'm like, it's looking pretty good, dude. And it seems like Machine Games nailed it. And when we talk about Microsoft making some kind of comeback, things kind of coming together. I mean, this is one of the things where they bought Bethesda and I mean, I don't know how well Indiana Jones is going to do, but it feels like Starfield was like the big game. But in reality, it almost kind of feels like Indiana Jones turned out to be a bigger game, right? It was like, wow, like this is might be like a bit of a potentially surprise hit for Microsoft. Am I going to get it when it launches on PS5? I'm still unsure. I mean, I'm definitely more interested in it now that it's getting really good reviews. Not that I let reviews determine if I'm going to buy a game or not, but it depends on what I'm playing when it comes out next spring. But if I do decide to play it, I know that a lot of people really liked it and they said it's pretty good. So a lot of stealth and one of those games where as long as you attack with melee, they never use their guns. Yeah, the whole first person part aspect of it is the part that I think really kind of I get hung up on a little bit. But apparently it works. Apparently it works. Microsoft actually has some good studios now. First person is vital for the puzzle solving. Okay. Yeah, how are the puzzles in the game? Are they like really difficult or are they kind of well balanced? There are Digital Foundry tech reviews for Indiana Jones. From what I heard, I didn't watch the tech review for it, but apparently it runs pretty well on the series consoles. Like it's well optimized. I'm curious to see like I mean at some point you have to imagine there's going to be a comparison for it on PlayStation and Xbox in the future. That I'd probably be more interested in. I think it's going to get PS5 Pro enhanced in the spring. I think it will. Yeah. Did it sell more Xboxes? Probably not. No. Maybe got some Game Pass subs though, but I don't think it. If I had to guess, it probably didn't move any Xboxes, or at least not many. The puzzles are easy. Oh, I mean, I prefer that. I mean, look, man, I don't know. I'm kind of like 50-50 with puzzles. I like puzzles that are well balanced, where they're not too difficult, but they're not too easy. When puzzles get too difficult, I get too flustered and annoyed, and I'm like, I don't. It could be rewarding to solve the more difficult puzzles in games. It certainly can be, but I feel like I don't play games for puzzles. You know what I mean? So if there's going to be puzzles in the game, but it's funny because the survival horror genre is one of my favorite genres. Meanwhile, that's like one of the biggest aspects of it. For me, that's always been like the most annoying aspect, but I understand like it's necessary for the pacing of the game and to get that sense of progression in a survival horror setting. But again, I appreciate well balanced puzzles that are not, even if there's like a lot of them, I don't mind as long as they're not annoying as shit and just like overly obtuse. Um, I'm fine with that. Saying puzzles just slow you down, really. Yeah, that's another. I think that is another reason why I don't like puzzles that much in games because I do tend to feel like they just stop everything. They kind of stop you in your tracks. But Imagine in the future there's just going to be we're pretty close to it now, but there's just going to be an option just disable puzzles completely. Doors that were once locked, they're just unlocked, you know? Shorten the game's play time by like 4 hours. No, I don't know that it'll be that extreme, but sometimes you have to stop and think before moving forward. Yeah. Yeah, that is true. Okay, you're saying PlayStation fans love to hate on it, but Game Pass is anecdotally taking off a big hit with friends. Taking off in a big hit with friends who are casuals. The past 2 months alone have had Call of Duty, Stalker 2, uh, I don't know what that, Nine Souls, Sifu, etc., and now Indie. Friends are staying subbed. Well, I've been waiting for Microsoft to announce the number, man. Like, I'm shocked they haven't already. Maybe they will next year. But I've really been curious to get an update on Game Pass sublords. I said lords. Why did I say lords? Somebody, it's because I read Chris Brown. I was going to say, like, bro, I read the word lord and it just came out of my mouth as I was speaking. Chris Brown says, my lord. Game Pass sublords. I've been waiting to get a update on subscribers for Game Pass from Microsoft, especially after Call of Duty. But yeah, I want the data. Yeah, I can't help it. I do want the data because I want to know, like, it does seem like Game Pass is maybe starting to hit its stride because Microsoft has kind of reached that point where it's like they're delivering new first party games like every couple of months now. And that was like the whole thing that they were building up towards. It's like we want to have a new game, not necessarily always the big AAA games, but just a new game every quarter or so. And we're seemingly seeing that now. Because there's gonna be like a Avowed in February, and I think there's a rumor that South of Midnight's gonna be March or something. So they are definitely starting to feed Game Pass very regularly, and I'm curious to know if it's really if it's working, you know? Because I mean, what you're describing here, okay, I think there's truth to it, but it's anecdotal, you know what I mean? And anecdotal stuff can definitely be helpful, but at the same time, there are many instances where anecdotally it's like, oh yeah, I heard this is doing really well or succeeding, but then like the numbers come out and it's like, oh, or the other way around, you know, oh, I heard this is doing really poorly, it's not working, and then the numbers come out, it's like, oh, it did do really well. So I do wonder when we're going to get a Game Pass update from numbers update from Microsoft, and I suspect they're waiting to hit a certain milestone. Like when they hit a certain number, that's when they're going to announce it. Maybe I don't know. Maybe they're waiting till they get to 50 million or something. Maybe that's why they haven't done it yet. So maybe it's taking a little bit of time. But but yeah, I do think that the argument for or against Game Pass is pretty much over at this point. I think that for the past couple years, pretty much since the start of this generation, there's been a lot of argumentation about, is argumentation a word? I feel like it is. Somebody fact check me on that. Is argumentation a word? I'm pretty sure it's a word, but it almost sounds like it isn't. Like it sounds like I just made it up. It is. Okay. All right. I thought so. What a weird word. I don't know. It just sounds weird to say. But there's been a lot of argumentation around um, the future. Who's right? Who's wrong? Is Microsoft's strategy the right strategy? Is it going to ruin gaming? Is it going to make gaming amazing? Is Sony's strategy the right strategy? Are they going to ruin gaming with their greed and their anti-consumer practices, or is it fine? And people like the way Sony's doing things. I think we've reached a point, honestly, where like, dude, it turns out that nobody was right or wrong the entire time. It just turns out that the entire industry was on its way to shifting, and every platform holder except Nintendo But every platform holder and every publisher, like, they were going to have to make changes to adapt and to, navigate the change. And I feel like at this point, it's weird because, like, on my Twitter feed, I still see so many people arguing about Xbox versus and PlayStation, and I'm like, guys, it's over, man. Like, it's over. And it's weird that it's like some people can't accept, and it I think from what I can tell, the people who can't accept are the people who need that conversation to stay alive. They need it to stay alive because that's all they really can contribute to the conversation. Um and I've noticed that with the release of Indiana Jones, where it's like, guys, Indiana Jones is a Microsoft first party game. It is, like, it's a game that is Microsoft first party, and it's getting really, really good reviews, and is apparently very good, and is very well done, and it's a success. And I see, like, certain people on Twitter where they're like trying to flex the fact, like, they're trying to, like, take the wind out of Xbox player sales by being like, yo, yeah, it's coming to PlayStation. And it's like, guys, like, like, you see, this is where I feel like people are the true colors are being revealed, where it's like, listen, if you wanted to argue with an Xbox player about Game Pass because there was concern that maybe Game Pass was going to hurt the industry in the long run, that's one thing. But as years go by and it turns out Game Pass is fine, you know, like, and that's true, Devil Shooter. Like, saying that is valid. You're right, it is valid, but it's like it's where it's coming from. And it's like, I see the people who are saying, like, some of the people who are saying, I see their profiles and I see what they're about. And it's like, guys, can we please just, like, fucking move past this? Cause it's those people that are keeping, unfortunately, like, the toxic conversations alive that should have been dead, like, months ago, or possibly, like, even a year ago at this point. It's like, guys, we need to move on to different conversations because you're getting held up in this one spot of, they're like, I guess I'm just saying, if you want to shit on Microsoft and you want to shit on Xbox, that's fine. You can do that. But you've reached a point. Yeah, it's like we've reached a point where it's like, but maybe do it when they release a game that does poorly, you know? And if they release a game that does well, just hush, like, just let it be. It's, you know what I mean? And I say this because I see it happen on the other side as well, where it's like when PlayStation does something good, or something good, or they release a good game and it reviews well, you see these people where they're trying to take the wind out of the sails, and it's like, why? Like, can you just let people enjoy Astrobot and shit, or Silent Hill? Just let them enjoy what they want to enjoy. And then when Sony does something stupid and bad, then we'll come back. We'll come back and we'll give them the criticism that they deserve. But I see so many people still trying to keep this. I don't know, man. They remind me of the soldier. It's always just comes to my mind, like the soldier that was living in the trees, thinking World War II was still happening. The war was still happening. It was like 20 years later, like after it ended, and they're like, bro, you can come down. Like, it's been like 20 years. Like, it's been over for 20 years. What are you doing? Did you not get the memo? That's what it reminds me of. It's like, what are we, I don't understand what we're fighting or arguing about anymore. Like, Microsoft bought Activision and Bethesda, bro, and their publisher now. Sony is releasing games on PC and working on a PC launcher, like, and they're going to do a handheld. What are we? And Xbox is doing handheld. Like, it should be clear, like, what's going on. It should be clear where we're headed. And I understand that not everybody wants to rip the Band-Aid off immediately, but it's like, dude, the Band-Aid's like hanging at this point. You know what I mean? It's like you got that, like, last stubborn part that's, like, attached to a couple hairs. You just got to, like, really quickly yank that last part off. I feel like that's where we are right now. Kyle Say stuff you're saying, I think these days console war is slowly fading since both of them are doing their own thing on like 2020. Hopefully next year there won't be Nintendo Switch 2 versus PlayStation. Yeah, I think there will be to a small extent, but only in the sense of like from it, like I imagine how I'm going to cover that, and what I'm going to be covering is when we see the reveal of the Nintendo Switch 2 and we see the rollout. I want to evaluate like how much market share could the Nintendo Switch 2 potentially take away from the PS5 slash PS6? Because that to me is the only part that's interesting. And I don't even, the truth is like Nintendo, they're not trying to do that. At least I don't get the sense that they are. Like Nintendo is, if Nintendo wants to take it to Sony and be like, we want your customers, Sony. If they're trying to do that, they're not making it very clear, and they're going to do it in a more auxiliary way. And even then, like that's why I don't think the console war is going to live on between the Switch 2 and the PS5. I think the way that conversation is going to go is people are just be like, "Oh yeah, I have both." I feel like that's how the conversation is going to live on, realistically. Um, there might be some people where it's like, "Oh, I'm getting the Switch 2 instead of a PS5, and I'm going to get the PS5 instead of Switch 2." There might still be that too, but I think honestly, it's probably going to be, yeah, that's how it is now. And I think that's going to continue. I'm going to have both. Maybe not get both at the same exact time, but it's also think about when the Switch 2 is coming out. The Switch 2 is coming out apparently next year. Buy the Switch 2 next year. PS6 isn't coming out for another like 3 years or something. So you got plenty of time to save up, or you don't have to make that choice. But yeah, man, it's just I'm kind of over so much of the like I don't know. I look at Microsoft and the truth is they're not I don't have the same feeling towards Microsoft that I did for the longest time now, because the thing that really changed for me is I was always so hard on Microsoft for like two reasons. Number one, I wanted them initially, it was like, I want you to make better games like that feel like they can actually compete with some of Sony's games, right? Because or Nintendo or whatever. Like it feels like you're just kind of getting left in the dust. It started with that, and then it also morphed into, as Microsoft changed their business strategies, into I don't like it feels like you're trying to pivot in a direction that feels like it's ultimately going to be even more detrimental. And it took a long time. I don't think anybody can deny that. It took a long time and a lot of money, but I think that we've reached this point where whatever it was that I was asking of Microsoft, it's like the first half they kind of did answer, right? And they're like, "Listen, we are making better games now. We bought a lot of them, but we're still providing them for our platform and for our customers." And so in the coming years, it's taken a long time to get here, but in the coming years, we're going to have just game after game after game after game. It's going to be nonstop. And a lot of them are probably going to be multi-platform as well. So we did it. You wanted good games. We're in the process of getting those good games and dropping those good games. The second half, though, when I finally I just come to accept that the second part of it, the answer is, listen, you want us to compete with PlayStation, like the PlayStation console. You want us to really take it to Sony like we were when we first entered the market, in 2001, like we were during the Xbox 360 and the Xbox One. We're not doing that. Like we're not. It's over. Like we're still going to make a console. We're still going to do some stuff in that space, but we're focused on growing Game Pass. We're focused on being a massive video game publisher and being a revenue leader. And everything else is just kind of supplemental to that. So once that realization fully hit me, that like, oh wow, like, yeah, that's it, man. Like I think we're gonna look back and it's gonna be clear that the PS5 and the Xbox Series X launch was the last real console war, right? Where it's like they're actually going toe to toe, head to head. And I think that I suspect that Microsoft's going to do something with the next Xbox console, because that's the thing. I know people are gonna be like, bro, you're talking about it like Microsoft isn't making any more consoles. They are, but I think Microsoft, by the time the next Xbox console comes out, there we very well could be looking at that being a, like, because somebody mentioned this earlier, if Steam were to make a console, like a multi-platform console, the next Xbox could be the first full multi-plat console where it's just like, yeah, there's no semblance of exclusivity on this console at all. You know, like it is our console. We made it. You get access to our storefront and all of our games, other third-party games that people want, that developers want to put on our storefront. But yeah, like Gears is launching on PlayStation, Halo's launching on PlayStation. Like all of our games are on PlayStation, Switch, and everywhere. It could be that, and it wouldn't shock me if that's what it ends up being. And I think because of that, it's like, yeah, console war can exist in that environment. You know what I mean? It just can. It doesn't. It wouldn't make any sense to try to, keep the console war alive in that environment. Hicksock, you're saying without exclusives, it will be games as a service city min maxing. Yeah, when it comes to the whole games as a service thing, man. I mean, Microsoft, I think they already secured theirs, right? Microsoft secured their games as a service. I'm more interested. I want to know more about Sony in this regard. I feel like, think about it. Just 2 years ago, I was reporting to you guys. Sony tells their investors, we got 10 live service games coming by 2026. And we're at a point where I think like 2 have come out. And there's like 2 or 3 more left to come out in the next year and a half or so. So games as a service is not going anywhere. Games as a service is going to become more and more relevant, truthfully, as the years go on. And I just want to know what Sony's planning to do now. I feel like right now the only live service plan Sony has is to just make sure the few games that they didn't cancel, Marathon, Fair Games, Horizon Multiplayer, to get them out the door and just see what happens. But I have to imagine there is still a greater plan in place long term. Good God, they're going to show Fair Games Thursday, aren't they? Yes. Jesus. I don't know, man. I look, I don't have much hope, but maybe they'll win us over, man. Maybe Fair Games, they'll show us the first gameplay and we're like, well, damn. They changed that look. They changed the look of this game, didn't they? I don't know. We still, oh God. I watched this video, guys. I want to watch it with you guys at some point. Maybe the next members lounge. Remind me when we talk about doing another members lounge. Whenever we do the next members lounge, if you guys are in there, remind me. There's this new video that just came out on Concord. I want to watch and react with you guys because it. Just remind me. I think Wolverine and Death Stranding 2 is the best bet to gamble on. What will they show? Maybe Yote. I mean, the first 2, I'm thinking. I don't know if Ghost of Yote would show up yet. I mean, Ghost of Yote is the only one that has like explicitly a year attached to it, I believe. I think that Stranding 2 does have 2025 attached to it, but I don't know. Foam Stars is getting its last update soon. Yeah, I mean, Sony really, I think, got desperate with the live service stuff. And again, we've talked about this at length. I understand why they got desperate with it. They need to succeed with live service at some point. And they did with Helldivers, but they need more, when you look at Microsoft as a publisher, one of the things that they did lock down, starting back in 2014 with Minecraft, is owning some of the biggest live service games in the world. And even you could argue, even back in 2014, they were making moves that if the console ecosystem imploded on them, they could still survive as a very successful publisher, mostly through live service. Sony's going to have to do the same thing because I'm not saying I expect the PlayStation console to implode ever or anytime soon, but it's just nobody knows the future. And, if the shit hits the fan, even if it's not Sony's fault, it's just like the market decided they don't care about console anymore, bro. Sorry. Sony's going to want to make sure that, they have certain revenue streams, just like every other publisher. But the strategy, I think, you could make the argument. I know some people aren't going to like me framing it this way, but it's just true. You could make the argument that Microsoft did it the smartest way. And when I say the smartest way, I mean the most guaranteed way. And that, like, they bought shit that is like, so is this going to work? Oh, yeah, this is going to work. This is one of the best, like Minecraft. Is Minecraft going to die anytime soon? No? Okay. Yeah, buy that. What about Call of Duty? Call of Duty going to stay? Is that still relevant? Yeah, very much so. Billions of dollars a year. Okay. Can you buy that too? It's going to be expensive. It's okay. We can afford it. And you can almost argue that's the luxury that Microsoft is afforded because of how big they are as a company. And Sony, it's not that they can't make big purchases themselves, but it's just, I don't know, man. There's, oh God. The more I think about it, it's like we do not know their plan, man. We don't. We don't. They have something. They made a game plan like 3 years ago, and we are now looking at, they snapped the ball. The ball was in play, and now the play is over, and they're back in the huddle, and we are just we're like the commentators, like just analyzing the last play, circling everything, and just highlighting everything. And the more I analyze it, the more I'm just like, holy shit. The execution was so bad. It was so bad. It's just like, I'm dying to know after that type of play, what are you planning on? What's the next play? What type of audible are you going to call? Because that was bad. And that we still don't know. And I don't know when we're going to know, but I think that there's, some people have this frame of mind that they think Sony's just going to kind of go back to, like, we're just going to make single player games, guys. We're not dealing with this. We're not dealing with this live service shit. That's not what they're going to do. They literally can't do that. If they plan on growing, and especially being a more robust publisher, and also because of the success that they saw with Helldivers 2, they got a taste of it as well. Keep that in mind. They got a taste of the failure. Oh yeah, they got a taste of the failure, but they also got a taste of that success. So they've seen both sides. And I just really hope that they proceed with caution and have a much greater understanding of how they should be approaching live service going forward. But they still haven't really talked much about it. And so, I don't know, man. It's been a hell of a year for PlayStation in terms of just the ups and the downs. And, but even Helldivers, they didn't know how to handle a success with live service. I will say, man, I think Sony this year truly revealed, not just this year, but in the years leading up to it, I feel like 2024 was the year where everything that they've been working on it all came to a head in this regard with live service. And I feel like Sony truly did reveal this year that they really were out of their depth, like more than we ever could have imagined. Because you are right. Sony wasn't responsible for the success of Helldivers 2, bro. Like, in the sense of, like, Sony didn't look at Helldivers and they're like, this is it. This is it. We found it. No, they were like, yeah, it should do just okay. Let's just see what happens. And that's true too. You're right. And you're saying it's Arrowhead that failed as well. It's not all on Sony. You're 100% on that. But that's also because even Arrowhead didn't know, right? And how could they? So it's not necessarily that I blame Sony or Arrowhead. It's just when you have something that blows up that big, that quick, and you are underprepared for it, um, you know, you can only react so quickly. And time is of the essence. Every day that goes by that you're not doing something to keep people engaged, they just left. You know what I mean? And then the next day, more people leave. And the next day, more people leave. And so the tough thing about live service, from what it seems, is that if a development team is a live service studio, their entire life revolves around that one game. And that's how it will be. And I don't think I think Arrowhead clearly planned to support the game. But when Arrowhead had to plan out their ambition of like, all right, what type of updates are we going to have? What type of content are we going to put out? They had to do so under the frame of like, maybe we sell like 1 million copies at most. Maybe we have like on average like 10 to 12,000 people playing. And you can kind of understand when it's like, no, you're going to sell like 14 million copies and you're going to have like hundreds of thousands, like almost like 600,000 or 700,000 people at its peak playing. So I could imagine it's probably super hard to like be like, oh shit, like, yeah, what we were planning isn't going to work. So what do we do? Anonymous Boss says, hit that like button. Yeah, guys, hit that like button for me. I really appreciate it. We're at 145 likes. The biggest mistake Sony made, and I know I'm being redundant in saying this. I know I'm being redundant, but I have to say it one more time. The biggest mistake Sony made, and this is where I will blame them, is they failed to identify the true potential of Helldivers 2, which is fine. Okay, I'm not going to like criticize it. Like sometimes you just don't know. Like nobody knew. So it's okay that Sony didn't identify the true potential of Helldivers 2, but instead, where I will criticize them is, but they did seemingly identify what they believe to be the true potential of a game like Concord. And that's what bothers me, because if Helldivers exists and Concord doesn't, then what that means is, well, at worst, Sony just didn't realize what they had. Okay, that happens. But that's not how Sony was operating. Sony behind the scenes was operating where it's like, we need our golden goose. You know what I mean? Like we need that. Where's the diamond? And they really thought Concord was that diamond. And that to me will forever make me nervous about Sony's live service approach, because it's just like, I just can't comprehend how somebody thinks that. Kyle Say Stuff, you're saying, isn't it crazy to think Nvidia is richer than Apple and Microsoft right now? If I tell you this 2 years ago, or told you this 2 years ago, you wouldn't believe me at all. RIP 50 series prices. Yeah, I know, dude. I didn't know that until just recently. I knew Microsoft was up there, obviously. I know Apple's up there, but I didn't realize Nvidia was up there. And then now they like surpassed them. It's crazy, dude. Yeah, it's crazy how far Nvidia has come. By the way, guys, with Kyle Say Stuff Super Chat, that brings us up to 13 Super Chats. So we are 7 away. We are past the 2-hour mark, so we'll probably be streaming a little bit longer. But, I want to encourage you guys, if you want to hit that goal, make sure you drop a teal Super Chat or higher. I think we could do it. We're not too far off. Anyway, I'm not trying to rehash the whole Concord thing. It's unnecessary. But when we talk about Sony's future approach to live service, I think Sony's very nervous, and I think they're kind of shook, and I think they should be. I think we need Sony to be the opposite of, uh, I don't want to use the word arrogant, but confident, truthfully, when it comes to their live service because they have no reason to be confident. I think what they need to do is realize that they've proven that they don't know how to identify. Like, let's just face it. Sony has proven they don't know how to identify what is or is not a what will or will not be a successful live service game slash studio. This is Sony's greatest failure this generation so far, and maybe in a long time. And you could make the argument, well, how is Sony supposed to know that if they don't have any experience in it? And I do agree that, yeah, you can't just know things if you don't have the experience. But this is why I think there's going to be even more pressure on Sony now because now they do have the experience. Now they do know. They did live through Concord. They did experience Helldivers. And this is why I can't wait to see Fair Games, dude. I can't because I'm going to need to know if, like, who I think it was MRPD, he kind of made the joke that, man, we're going to see Fair Games at the Game Awards, aren't we? We might. And if Fair Games looks like trash, it like looks maybe not as bad as Concord, but maybe like very, like almost just as underwhelming. And people are just like, are you kidding me? That will make me kind of lose it a little bit because it's like, bro, Sony, what, like you literally just went through this. You know what I mean? Like you just went through this. There are some people I've seen refer to Fair Games as Concord 2. And I don't want to be unfair, you know? I don't want to count something out until we see it. But all I do know is that there is one trailer out there for Fair Games that shows us a pretty good glimpse at what this game's going to be and what it's going to look like. And all I can say is that if they didn't change it dramatically, it is going to be Concord 2, unfortunately. I'm not saying that I want it. I'm not rooting for it to fail, but it's just like the people, if you go look at the people's reactions to that Fair Games trailer, in some ways it was even worse than the first Concord trailer because the first Concord trailer, we didn't even know what we were looking at. So we have a much better idea of what Fair Games is going to be. And it's been multiple years. So it's only been a couple of months, like 6 months, I would say, since we saw the reaction to Concord. So I don't imagine that the studio can just completely uproot their game in a matter of 6 months. But man, I will place the blame on Sony. If this game comes out and it's very clear that it's just like, holy shit, you guys are pulling a Concord 2.0, I'm going to place the blame squarely on Sony because it's like, you didn't have to do that. You know what I mean? Like, you could have canceled Concord before it came out. You could have delayed Concord before it came out when you saw the reactions, and you didn't. You still went through with it. So if we see a similar situation with Fair Games, at that point, I will give up hope on Sony when it comes to live service in any way, shape, or form, because it's just you cannot have a Concord situation occur and then the next year be like, all right, but what if we do it again? You can't do that. So hopefully Fair Games will be different and it will be better. Hopefully Marathon will be good. I think Marathon has the most potential. And we'll see how this Horizon Live Service game turns out, but I don't know. Beyond that, I'm not really sure what Sony is planning to do, but they gotta hit them check boxes, yo. Yeah, people may not even give Marathon a chance. It's already dead. I don't know that I feel that way yet. I think Marathon could win people over if the gameplay is compelling enough. But yeah, it might be. I don't know. We'll have to see. It's almost impossible to gauge if live service will catch on. Lightning in a bottle. It is so hard to catch, which is why Microsoft spent 80 billion to buy Sure Bets. Yeah, yeah, and that's true. That's absolutely true. And I don't. Again, I just think that Sony has to try to make better bets, man. I know it's hard, but now I guess what I'm saying is now that they have some experience under their belt, it's like, okay, you know what it's like to bet on the worst of the worst now. You know what that looks like. So surely anything you choose to bet on now will be better than that, at the very least. Might not be the next big thing, but it will be better than that. So we'll see. What we see today is planned years ago. Exactly. And I think that's why I'm eager, dude. Capono, you're absolutely right. That's why when I have these conversations with you guys, I always seem so eager. Like, I want to know what's next. I want to know what's next because that is true. Everything we're seeing today has been, this is like, everything we're seeing is Jim Ryan, dude. And I know we talk about Herman Hulst, and a lot of it's Herman Hulst as well, but everything is Jim Ryan at the end of the day. The rest of the PS5 gen is Jim Ryan. We will not be seeing Herman, Holshino. Is that what we Holshinoism? Yeah, there we go. We will not be seeing the results of Holshinoism probably until the very end of this generation. Like, and by that I mean we're not even going to see it. We're not going to experience it. We're going to see it. They're going to lay it out and be like, here's what's next. And yeah, man, I think that's what's just kind of tough right now is knowing that a lot, if not everything, we're going to see. Like, this is stuff that was already going to happen anyway. So it's still the remnants of Jim Ryan, for better or for worse. Concord was a Herman teaser of things to come. Do you think Jim retired also because he knew his plan didn't work too well? I'm not sure, man. I really don't know. I mean, there's no denying that the timing of Jim Ryan's retirement is peculiar. It could, I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever know. I will tell you this. I do think the one thing that we learned around the time of Jim Ryan's retirement, um, I do think he was basically asked to leave. And the reason why I say this is because something that went way underreported because it was very much, um, it was uh, it was just something that wasn't really highlighted is Connie Booth got fired. And Connie Booth was, PlayStation's main producer for like 30 years. And she got fired, like straight up. And something like that only happens when the shit hits the fan. Like that's not something that just is like, you made a small mistake, so now you're fired. No, something like that, getting rid of somebody and straight up firing them after all those years. And I think that's why, that happened around the same time that Jim retired. And that's why I just feel like, so Jim's leaving, Connie Booth got fired. I feel like you could just kind of connect the dots. And it's like somebody higher up at Sony, probably Hiroki Totoki, probably caught wind that, holy shit, what did you guys do? Like what is going on here? Like Hiroki Totoki's like the meme, like walking in. It's that meme of the dude walking in the room with like a bunch of pizzas, smiling, but the whole room's on fire, and it's just like, what? But yeah, I do think at the end of the day, that's likely what happened. Um, or you know what? Hold on, I will say this too. There's another way to look at this. There is a possibility that Jim was not asked to leave, and instead he was asked to fix the situation. To which he promptly said, I think I'll retire. Because if you think about it, from Sony's perspective, somebody as senior as Jim Ryan, somebody that was there that whole time and the CEO, I could kind of see how they would maybe be like, listen, Jim, you messed up and we get it, but you got to fix it. And I think if that's the case, I think that actually maybe might explain it a little bit more as well, where it's like I can choose to try to fix this, even though I have no idea how to fix it, or I could just retire now. I don't know. One day we might find out, but right now it's still a mystery, and I guess we'll see. All right. Where are we at here? All right, guys, we'll go for about another 10 minutes here to hit the 2.5 hour mark. So again, just a reminder, if you want to drop any member gifts, if you want to drop any more super chats, see if we can hit our goal. We'll do that now, but I'll chat with you guys for the next 10 minutes before we wrap up today's stream. What's even crazier is this all happened in January, no? I think so, yeah. I think it was prior to that, prior to January. I think it was announced in like December or something. But yeah, Jim Ryan, another thing too is Jim Ryan didn't leave immediately either. He was there for like another 3 or 4 months. So that's another reason why I think maybe like, I don't know, maybe he really wasn't asked to leave, but he was just like, I can't deal with this shit. you know, like there's just too much. You think the traveling back and forth was hard on him? You think that was true? Yeah, it probably was true. Maybe Jim will write a book. Maybe. You're saying giant bets always get signed off by the main man. He did it. He had to go. Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's no denying that reality as well, Titus, right? You're absolutely right. The buck did stop with Jim. And so at the end of the day, no matter how badly somebody underneath him screwed up, he was responsible for that. That's what you take on in a position of CEO. He was more about the money than the games. Why don't people question Sean? He was clearly fired. Dude, I would be if you listen to the way Sean Layden's been talking recently, he's been basically saying like what he would be doing if he was in charge of PlayStation, like the direction, like if he had say, like if he was PlayStation CEO. And if there's one thing that Sean would not be doing is he made it clear that he doesn't think consoles are the way to go. Like he would still, he's not saying like PlayStation should stop making consoles, but he's just saying that like he doesn't think in the next like decade or so or whatever that people are going to care about consoles. So it's really interesting to think about like, you know, what PlayStation could look like right now if Sean Layden was still in charge. Imagine it's been chaos behind the scenes the last couple of years. Yeah, somewhat. Yeah. Have you talked how multiple insiders have said that the Game Awards is going to be big? I did. Yeah, we talked about that a little bit earlier. There's some PC guys coming to consoles? Are there? Sean Layden. Yeah, the reports about Sean Layden leaving, from what we heard, what we gathered, is apparently there was like some kind of internal civil war between like the two leadership branches. I think one was Jim Ryan's, one was Sean's, and they both had very different visions, apparently. Very different visions about the next generation and the direction they should go in. And you know, it's weird because it's like I don't think Jim Ryan's was all wrong, but I think when we look back at the last 4 years, it's like we've seen a lot of things go wrong for PlayStation, at least in the like whole pursuit of live service. It seems like the whole live service thing, that was Jim's grand plan. I think that was Jim Ryan's grand plan. And I almost wonder if Sean Layden was against that. If Sean was like, we shouldn't do the live service thing. That's a mistake. We have to like stay. I imagine Sean Layden's plan was like, we should still make AAA games, but we have to have more AA games. We have to have more smaller games. Like we have to kind of diversify our single player portfolio to having different sized games rather than go all in with live service. At least that's, again, hearing the way Sean talks, that kind of is what it sounds like to me. But then he went to China. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Kyle Say stuff. You're saying Sean did say he will never let PlayStation I said gums games to PC. I don't know, man. Kyle, I think one of the last interviews with Sean Layden before he left PlayStation, I could be wrong, but one of the last interviews was him basically saying that they might have to start dipping into PC a little bit more. But I don't know. Did he say that? I don't recall him. Maybe you're right about that. I mean, we're talking about interviews from like years ago. MBG, what really forced Jim to leave was all the ABK stuff. People were spying his plane back then. The market's different now. You could tell Sony was changing during the latter half of the PS3 generation. Someone left at that time and they ended home in PlayStation Select. Well, I mean, at this point in time, man, now that Shuhei Yoshida is going to be leaving, I mean, we have truly like a new generation of leadership at PlayStation. And I think a lot of people think that like, they have like a lot of trepidation. Unico says he's scared. I mean, yeah, there could be a lot that goes wrong, but it's also, new blood. It can be a good thing too, but it's too early to tell. So I realize it's like it's tough anymore to have conversations about the future of PlayStation because it really just kind of boils down to looking at what just happened and trying to determine what will come next, but also knowing that Sony is basically completely silent about what's coming next. I mean, we know about like next year, for example, with some games and stuff, but generally speaking, we really just don't know. I'm talking like bigger picture type plans. We do not know. Am I going to have a Christmas break? I don't know. It depends on how the month goes. It really depends. I was able to afford a Christmas break last year, which was nice. But we'll see. We'll see how this year goes. You think Sony's rethinking their live service after Concord for sure? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely. No doubt about it. They have to. They have to. I think that they were rethinking it prior to that, but that really lots of old people are still there, unknown names though. I think you're probably right about that, Irfan. I think there's a lot of people that are still there that have been there the whole time that we just don't really know their names. We're not familiar with them. But all right, guys, we're about to hit the 2.5 hour mark. This is where I am going to wrap up today's stream. I don't want to drag it out too long. I've been trying to keep the streams a little bit shorter these days, a little bit easier to digest. So, yeah, that's going to do it. We did cover pretty much all the topics. We kind of just very quickly went over the Switch stuff. I didn't really talk about that much, but either way, I think we had some good conversations, and I appreciate you guys tuning in. Before I head out, though, I want to give a massive thank you to everybody who not only watched, but if you dropped direct support, if you dropped any membership gifts, if you dropped any super chats or direct donations. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. Seriously, I'm only able to do this because you guys make it possible. So thank you for the direct fan funding. Also, want to make sure I give a shout out to Devil Shooter, who does the timestamps for the streams. So if you see him in the comments, show him some love, give him some thanks, and tell him you appreciate it. And yeah, that's going to wrap it up. Just do me one last favor as you're heading out, and please hit that like button to help the stream. And I did put a video out earlier, so you can go check that out if you haven't. And yeah, we will continue with the content flow in the upcoming week. So, all right, guys, that does it. Thank you once again for tuning in, and I will catch all of you guys in the next one. So, till then, take care, everyone.